Hamlets. Tower Hamlets, we were one of the fortunate ones to be a local authority which was funded to take forward the family hubs. We're a small borough, 7.6 square miles, located in the east of the City of London. We were also one of the really fortunate local authorities that at the early stage we worked with the Early Intervention Foundation to work on our theory of change. The local authority decided that we were going to take a hub and spoke model. So in Tower Hamlets, although we had 16 different sites where we delivered what used to be known as the Sure Start Family Centres, we transformed those into 4 networks and we had 4 family hubs. And the family hubs really developed into the network which we developed, delivered our early help strategy. Tower Hamlets is a very, very dense local authority. In that 7.6 square miles, we have primarily rented accommodation. 70% of it is rented, and it's also one of the fastest local authorities when it comes to population growth. In the last 10 years, we had 22% increase in the population. It's one of the most ethnically diverse boroughs, and we have over 100 languages spoken in our schools. And the largest population there is the Bangladeshi population, which accounts for 34.6% of the population. We're sandwiched between, it's actually really a city of two towns, really. We're sandwiched between the city and Canary Wharf. And the average salary, believe it or not, in Tower Hamlets is £112,000. The average salary of someone who lives in Tower Hamlets and works in Tower Hamlets is £22,000. So it shows you the differences that we've got there. It's got one of the highest local areas or super output areas, of deprivation in the country. But saying all of that, we're really proud that although our children often start in school at a lower age, most of our schools in the borough are, or 97% of them are good or outstanding. Average attainment at GCSE is above the national average, and 71% of our 18-year-olds sustain a good level at level 4 and end up in higher education. Eamon talked about this morning about relationship and trauma, and in our children and family centres, when we're able to do that really, really well, magic happens. And today you'll see a video of 3 families in Tower Hamlets that we've worked with. You'll hear the first parent, who's called Yasin, and he came into our family centre needing some support. He'd had to leave his full-time job because of some caring responsibilities. And we supported him to start his own business, a catering business. And he now provides most of or almost all of the catering for our children and family centres. Abigail, first accessed children and family centres when she was looking for SND support, and we helped her again, not only support with her family, but also through volunteering. She found employment in our children and family centres. And finally, Jannat was passionate about her education, and through volunteering, she got a new kind of confidence and knowledge to really take herself forward. Thank you.
I'm a father of 3. I have a 9 years old, 4 years old, and 1 month old. And my 9 years old is a special needs child.
I have 2 children, a boy and a girl. One have special educational needs, and they are doing very well.
I have 2 children. My elder boy is 7 years old and the younger one is 4.5.
The family hub has been there, I would say, from the birth of my children up till now, I would say they are still part of my life and part of my children's life. There was a time I was really struggling to access the right support more for my son. That caused me like depression. I was really depressed. I was able to get like the talking therapy through the family hub, and it was, I think I did 6 to 7 week session. Through that therapist again, I was able to get access to more information, more support that I need and how to access it.
I have 8-month volunteering experience with play and stage session. I have my elder son who has a delayed speech. As a mom, I was worried about that. While participating as a volunteer with play and stage session, I have learned so many things. How I can support my son and how I can do one-to-one at home. And now I can see he has developed a lot. I'm quite happy with that. I got the opportunity to come here, Family Hub Center, and learn so many things, and I applied in my practical life as well.
I've received a lot of help from the Family Hub regarding my son because he's a special needs child. When I moved to the London, so it was really hard to find out how I can get into the schools and other services. The center helped me to find out the certain people where those people helped me to get into the special needs school. And right now my son is doing very well actually. He's more calm, more relaxed. When I left my full-time job, it was really frustrating. I was just walking around on the street. I don't know what to do. I was looking for something which can manage my time with my child. So I started volunteering and slowly I get to know the family house and everything.
I wanted to do something, I wanted to work. Like, I was able to secure a job through the family hub, and like when you have kids, more special needs kids, sometimes it is overwhelming. You need to go out and do something for yourself. Like, I was able to get that support, and I'm really grateful. That has really improved my mental health, I would say, yeah.
When I came to the Family Hub Center, gradually I built my confidence. I be motivated. I believe in myself basically. When I go back to home, I tried with my son, let's do this, let's do some art, let's do some water playing or messy playing, some sensory playing, and it also helped me to work out with my son. Now I can see a huge change in my son because now he can speak nicely in English as well as in my my own language.
This place is like family to me. Like, when you come to the family hub, there's someone that always listens to you. Someone is always there to give you support. It doesn't matter what you are going through, but when you come here, there will be help. Help is always here, I'll say, yeah.
Definitely, parents need to come Family Hub Center.
It has been great. It has been, it has been great. A lot of things have moved forward. If there was no family hub, I think I would still be struggling to access things that I need, that I will not be able to know which number to call or where to go to access the right support for my kids or for myself.
It is very important to have everything in one place, I believe, because people are so busy in here. This is like a city is always busy. They don't have enough time to run one door to another door. And if you get everything in one place, it's really important for the family, especially for the family.
I'm sure we've all got Yassines and Abigail and Jannat in our local authorities. But it's that magic that we're able to bring when we bring all of that together in our children and family centres and family hubs that makes that difference.
Thanks so much. And we will be taking questions about services at Tower Hamlets as well later. But now I'm going to pass on to Tom.
Thanks very much. and thanks again for the invitation to come and speak to you today. I'm going to give you a very quick overview of Nesta, and then I'm going to offer a couple of case studies of how we have approached this question of how do we know we've made a difference. But to do the what is Nesta bit first, we're the UK's innovation agency for social good. We've been around for about 25 years, and we design, test and scale new solutions to some of society's biggest challenges. Ever since 2021, we have been working on the Fairer Start mission, which aims to make sure that the circumstances of a person's birth don't dictate the trajectory of their life. And we have, for that mission, the goal of eliminating developmental outcome gaps between children born into deprivation and their peers by 2030 across the UK. The way that we do that usually is through working in partnership with other organisations to pursue applied innovation projects, which will help us develop solutions which, combined, will then contribute alongside other things to eliminating those developmental gaps. So some of those partnerships are with local authorities, and I'll talk about a couple of those in the case studies. The three that we work with most closely do all have family hubs, and so while I'm not presenting an evaluation of a family hub, hopefully it's all relevant. But we also work with charities, with academics, with startups and with intervention developers in order to pursue this mission. We recognise that there is, alongside there being taking a village to raise a child, there is a huge and passionate early years sector, and we're just one part of that. So we always work in partnership to pursue our objectives. Before I move into the case studies, I just wanted to give a very quick overview of how Nesta approaches and sees the world of evaluation. I'll do this really quickly, but to reassure you, when you receive the slides afterwards, there's more information in the appendix if you want to get into any of the more technical detail. But in order to pursue the Fairer Start mission and our other work, we needed to sort of build a theory of how we approach evaluation at Nesta. So this is our kind of overview. How do you know you're making a difference? Well, we think you need broadly this kind of checklist. So firstly, you need to have a purpose for evaluating something. Secondly, you need a thing to evaluate. And then the sort of more interesting bits, within that evaluation, a theory of change. That's going to be how you ground your hypotheses and your understanding of what you expect to happen. An outcomes framework. This will help you select an indicator of change, and I'm really pleased that Elaine Fulton is on the agenda for today and can talk about outcomes frameworks in more detail later. An evaluation plan, data to inform that, and then finally a commitment to act in response to that outcome. Today I'm mainly going to talk about the evaluation plan. So I'm not going to talk about the other bits, though they are of course important. This is an evaluation plan on one slide. So there's 4 questions that we would ask to inform that evaluation plan. Your stage of maturity, the amount of time and resource you have, what you want to know, and how you can find this out. For stage of maturity, we think there's broadly 4 stages, from very early stage to proven. That's likely to impact what it is you're seeking to find. Time and resources is fairly straightforward. You can either have a lot or not very much, but that shouldn't impact upon your ability to evaluate, nor indeed your ability to do so rigorously. What you want to know broadly splits into 2 categories. One sort of evaluation question is, how does something work? Why does something work? And then the other category is, does it work? So I've got an example of both later on, but I think the important thing to mention here really is that the how it works question really will require a very mixed method style approach, and we would always blend qual and quant methods in doing that, whereas the impact evaluation side of things tends to lend itself better to quantitative measures, and there's sort of 3 categories of things: randomized controlled trials, quasi-experimental design, and theory-based evaluations. So, some case studies. The first one I'm going to provide is on the how does it work side of the equation, And it's some work we've been working on in Stockport. I don't know, is there anyone from Stockport in the audience today? No, good. That means it will all be brand new information to everyone in the room, which is great. So this is a fairly complex service redesign process. We've been working with them to develop an integrated midwifery and health visiting partner pathway. That's something that's been co-created with both practitioners and parents in the borough. The problem it solves is that the transition from midwifery to health visiting can be quite abrupt. Sometimes families don't meet their health visitor until after their baby's born, which is usually a very bad time to be trying to form a new relationship with a professional when you have a very young new baby. And that can result in lost information and trust, which then translates into lower engagement in further support in the future. So to solve that problem, we developed this integrated midwifery and health visiting pathway. This is only for families who are within what Stockport consider their targeted group, and those families are identified at 8 weeks of pregnancy. It really revolves around a joint visit at between 20 and 24 weeks, but there is also then an ongoing long-term support plan and assigned responsibilities. And we have also been working closely with sort of IT systems to make sure that we can share information properly and reduce some of that administrative data loss that is happening. So this is the as I said, the sort of core part of the integrated pathway, which is the joint visit. This tells you the story of how that works, all the way through from identification, which happens at the 8-week appointment, all the way through to the meeting itself, and then the implementation of the plan thereafter. But when we were trying to think about how we might evaluate this, we used this our four questions for designing the plan. So we'll see if the animations work on this. It does, just about, great. So in this one, we'd been through very early stage development. That was done with a very agile, iterative process. Then we ran a pilot of this pathway about this time last year, actually. It ran for 3 months from October to January. So we'd already done a pilot evaluation, which has sort of ironed out some of the delivery and implementation issues. And we were then approaching, in the summer of this year, the full rollout of the pathway across all of Stockport, which was being done across 3 waves. So we were in the tested stage of maturity. Unfortunately, we didn't have huge amounts of time or resource to put into this due to the nature of both Stockport's ambitions to scale up, and that was to be done alongside their family hub plans, as well as our partnership with them, which was a 3-year partnership which ends towards the end of this year. So we weren't blessed with time and resource, but that hasn't impacted upon the quality of or rigor of the evaluation. As I mentioned, we're at this point interested in the how it works question. We think it's too soon to be doing a full impact evaluation, and also within Stockport at this point, within our timescales, we wouldn't have got a strong enough, a big enough sample size, so it wouldn't have been a powered enough evaluation to do the impact piece, but we hope that will follow in the future. So it's a how it works evaluation focused on implementation and process. That blends qual methods and quant methods. We're actually working with an external evaluator to do this. We felt that having been so involved in the development of the integrated pathway, it would benefit from having an independent evaluator come in and do it. So an organisation called Aptelligen are working with us to do this, and they have 3 evaluation questions. So firstly, what are the successes and challenges of implementing the service innovation? And they're asking questions that some of them are fairly basic, like did the visits happen at the time that they should have done, and for the families that we identified as needing them, but also more complex questions like which elements of the joint visit are liked by families and practitioners, where might there be elements or areas for improvement. We're asking whether intended outcomes of the joint visit are being realised. Now we're having to look at kind of proxy indicators of outcomes, because the sort of overall longer term outcomes won't be visible for months or years hence. So we do have some identification of shorter-term outcomes and indicators we can look at there. And then finally, we wanted to see whether or not the joint visit is being implemented in accordance with the agreed operational and quality assurance procedures that we developed. So to do that, they've got interviews with families who experienced the joint visit, interviews with midwives and health visitors. We are collecting administrative data on number of families identified as needing the joint visit, and then how many of those we actually get through the joint visit and thereafter. And we'll also be bringing in individual family case stories. Final slide on this is just to say that this evaluation is based on something called normalization process theory, which is a kind of conceptual framework used very often in health settings, but it enables us to test or assess whether or not new ways of working, usually in fairly complex public service systems, are being normalized and embedded or sustained as in business as usual in practice. So that enables you to be iterative, collaborative, and pragmatic. I have to apologise, I've sort of almost used up all my time. So the second case study, which you'll get in the notes, is actually more straightforward. It's just an RCT of a behavioural insights informed communications change project. There we wanted to see whether changing how we communicate the offer increased the number of families who took up the free childcare offer. It was as I said, impact evaluation. So we ran an RCT to test that. It's got two arms. We compared business as usual with a changed letter. That letter was changed with insights from behavioural science. And we had two outcome measures. And we found that the changed letter was basically less effective. So it didn't result in any higher engagement with the free childcare offer on either of our outcome measures. So the primary analysis, no higher application rate, and impact on actual take-up, so after the application, whether the offer was taken up, again, it didn't make a difference. So that happens sometimes. That's the scientific method. What's useful about that is it means we've learned something about what we shouldn't do in future. And we rest assured that business as usual was actually better than the service innovation in this instance. So as an example of where you maybe don't get the result you wanted, but you still learned something and you've justified the process of evaluation. Before I finish up, I just wanted to say that these aren't examples from Family Hubs, but they are things that might comprise part of a Family Hub offer. So I hope they'll feel useful in that sense. But I wanted to plug the fact that we've recently started a new project called A New Era of Integration. We heard earlier from our new ministers, and we know that there is a new government, there will be a new policy vision coming for things like Family Hubs and for the future of this agenda. So we are working across the sector and also with families to try and shape that vision, and we'd love you to be part of that. So I'm hoping they'll share our contact details afterwards, but if you'd like to be part of this, we'll be doing interviews, focus groups, other forms of research over the next 9 months, and so we'd love you to be part of that if you'd be interested. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Anna, just before I start, I've written at the top of my my piece of paper, I was really pleased that the conference will be on your YouTube channel. Last night, I was preparing for this, and my two daughters, Leela and Rani, who are 13 and 11, were squabbling and shouting, and whatever I do, I can't get them off YouTube. So I'm wondering if you've given me my riposte now. I'm wondering if the riposte is you need to watch your daddy give a presentation endlessly in the future. So hello, Leela and Rani, if we're doing this. I'll start just by saying a few brief words about Thrive at 5. We're a newish early years charity. We're just 3 years old, so we're still a toddler. We work in small areas, so typically a cluster of disadvantaged wards with an ambition to ensure that every local child has the strong foundations they need for life and learning. So we're currently working in 2 wards in Stoke-on-Trent, so Abbey Hulton and Bentley on the eastern border of Stoke-on-Trent, and we're working in Redcar and Cleveland as well, a cluster of 5 wards in the northwestern border, bordering Middlesbrough. I'll borrow from you, Tom. Is there anyone from Stoke-on-Trent or Redcar in the room? Okay. So to achieve our work, we recruit and employ backbone teams, so typically a 9 or 10 person team, who help coordinate and strengthen early years systems and pathways and services. And in doing this, we work really closely with family hubs. So you've got the picture there of the Bentley Family Hub, and I can often be seen in there on a Wednesday, and that bridge, I can assure you, is absolutely treacherous in the ice. But in doing this, we work closely with family hubs. We also work closely with midwives and health visitors, speech and language therapists, CAMS practitioners, PVI nurseries and primary schools. So, in essence, what we're trying to do is to take the best of family hubs, further resource and extend the work, and give it a really sharp focus around children's early years outcomes. And all of Thrive at Five's work acknowledges that children's outcomes are interrelated and shaped by multiple different factors, that we've long had this horrible link about where a child comes from and what they're then able to do, but that to make a serious effort at mitigating those disadvantages, we need to work in an integrated, holistic way across all parts of children's lives. So that's the raison d'etre of our work at Thrive at Five. So we measure the difference we make to babies, children and families at a population level. So that's the entire early years cohort across our target wards, and also at a work stream level. And on this slide, I'll just try and give you a sense of how we're trying to measure our impact at a population level. And I do emphasise we're a fairly new charity, so all of this work is underway as opposed to complete. So you can see there the good level of development. We use early years foundation stage profile scores, particularly good level of development, to measure our ultimate impact. Our independent evaluators, the Centre for Evidence and Implementation, they are conducting a quasi-experimental impact evaluation in each of our local sites using a difference in difference design. That was a big jargony sentence. So essentially comparing how Thrive at Five cohorts do at the EYFS compared to matched cohorts. So that's how we're measuring our overall impact goal. Now, we also have 5 intermediate outcome areas, which you can see on the slide and you can hopefully decipher. And we see those as the stepping stones to the achievement of our overall outcome. So these stepping stones are parent-infant relationships, because we know that's absolutely critical for children in terms of their attachment and their cognitive development and their social and emotional development. Parental well-being, parental mental health, because we know that early parenting doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in a context, and mental illness or poor mental health can undermine the bandwidth that parents have to parent well. Children's home learning environments, because we know from the evidence that reading to children, playing games, singing to children, I mean, the evidence is astonishing in this. I mean, in some respects, suggesting that this is even more important than social class or parent educational attainment. So we know that children's home learning environments are absolutely critical. Also, children's communication and early language, and then the quality of early education and care in settings. So our evaluator will consistently track this data and report back to us. There is a challenge here that I just wanted to flag to the conference. And a key challenge is that very often local systems are not producing good data across these intermediate outcome areas. Now, to meet this challenge, we are investing in additional health visitor data collection capacity. So with additional dedicated home visits taking place in Private 5 areas so that we can capture a much richer amount of data. We think it's really important that we can capture data on all the causes of why children don't do well. So therefore we're investing in that richer data. And we're also working closely with local schools and PVIs to standardise the assessment tools used for screening and end-of-year progress checks. So next, we also do our work. I mean, that's measurement at a population level. And obviously, we also do work at a work stream level. So we've got individual work streams. The two are clearly interconnected because unless the work streams are delivered at a sufficient scale and unless they reach sufficient coverage, we don't have a realistic or plausible chance of making a population level impact. So the two are intertwined. At a work stream level, we monitor and evaluate our local work streams. We have work streams that we think of as outcome drivers. So those are typically organised around evidence-based tools or approaches. They directly address our intermediate outcomes. So we, for example, were supporting 7 local schools in Stoke-on-Trent to implement the Nuffield early language intervention. None of the schools were fully implementing the intervention before we arrived. We have struck up a partnership with Staffordshire University, so we now have a cohort of 30 undergraduate teachers supported by 2 undergraduate students supported by 2 peripatetic teachers who are working across the 7 schools so that we can try and deliver the Nuffield early language intervention. We're doing similar things with talking time at the nursery age and with Peep Learning Together to work on children's home learning environment, so additional capacity and additional expertise. We also have work streams that we think of as outcome enablers, so helping to establish the underlying conditions for positive shifts in our intermediate outcomes. Now, these are things like parent outreach, strengthening practice and joining up the system. When we arrived in the areas in Stoke-on-Trent, we did lots of survey work, and actually Tom Nestor came along and helped us out with a great deal of it. We found that parents were very isolated, very few places to go. So we've done a lot of work to try and increase the number of local parent, baby and toddler groups. And we're pleased to say that due to our work with partnerships, there are now 14 weekly parent, baby and toddler groups across those 2 wards. And they provide an important place for parents to come. It's creating those conditions for us then to do the work, which will hopefully have an impact on our intermediate outcomes. So just to sum up, so there's some time for questions. Private 5's a new early years charity working in small areas with high levels of disadvantage. We measure and evaluate our work at a population level and at a work stream level. At a population level, we focus on good level of development and our 5 intermediate outcomes, our stepping stones. And we also work at a work stream level. Some of our work streams directly influence those intermediate outcomes, and some of them create the underlying enabling conditions.